Welcome to session 2. It's me again. I am recording these in the same day in case you're thinking, does she ever get home and have a wash and get changed? I am recording session 2 on the same day as I recorded session 1. So session 2 has a really long title, like I said. Health, safety and welfare of the child, safe for caring, protecting children, supporting foster carers. Now what I always say at the beginning of this session is this is the session that has the potential to leave you feeling ugh. To bring the mood down a bit, if you like, because what we do at the end of this session is we talk about complaints and allegations, and that can leave people feeling a bit low. Now what I always say in the training room is the next time you see me, if you have got any questions, if you are having doubts, if you are feeling downtrodden by what we cover in this session, come and talk to me. Obviously you guys are doing this at home so you can, but what I would urge you to do is if this does raise any serious concerns, doubts, further points that you want to discuss, get in touch with whoever it is that is your contact at fostering and talk it through, because that's really important. Okay, so we're going to be looking at how to approach caring tasks in everyday life in a safe way. We're going to be looking at how you can manage the risk of complaints, standards of care, concerns and allegations. I've put this up, the national minimum standards, so like I said in the last session, it's really important that you are aware of the national minimum standards, and for this session particularly just have a look at those ones that relate to risk, safety and health. So we're going to start by looking at risk, potential sources of harm to children. So the Skills to Foster split risks or potential sources of harm into 5 categories. Everyday accidents and hazards, risky people, dangers arising from children's own behaviour, oppressive social attitudes and negative stereotypes, and a risk avoidant culture. So at this point I would ask people in the room what they think each one means. You're not in my room, so I'm going to talk through them for you. So everyday accidents and hazards then. What we're talking about is trips, falls, that kind of thing. Burns, skulls, bangs. Just things that can happen every day. Risky people. So I always say to the room here, who are risky people? And more often than not, everyone in the room will give the response, strangers. And yes, a stranger could be risky, a stranger could not be risky. The point is, anyone could harm a child. And if we don't get that message across, then children will be looking out for people rather than what it is that is harmful. So anyone who's a similar age to me will have done sessions at school where we came away with stickers that said say no to strangers, and you will have watched a video where there was some children playing in the park, and a man, always a man, in a big Mac, always had a Mac on, came to the park with some sweets in his pocket, and he had a real dodgy voice, and he'd go, oh, do you want some sweets? And the kids would be like, oh yeah, and then he'd say, do you want to see some puppies in my van? He'd take the kids to see the puppies in the van, and he'd drive off with them in the van, you'd never see the children again, and it said, say no to strangers. What that prepared me for was dodgy men in dodgy Macs in the park with sweets in their pocket. Okay, so you can bet your bottom dollar if a bloke in a Mac came up to me and asked if I wanted some sweets, I'd say no. But what else did it prepare me for? It didn't talk about, we kind of avoided what it is that this man could then do. It didn't tell us why the sweets and the puppies were dangerous. What we need to be telling children is that anyone could harm them, and actually if this happens to you, or if you feel like this, that's not safe, you need to tell somebody. So it's not the who, it's the what. Number 3 then, dangers arising from children's own behaviour. So more often than not, the response I get to this one is self-harm. And yes, self-harm can be a real issue for a lot of our children. And self-harm doesn't have to be someone just cutting themselves. You could have someone who headbutts. A lot of our children might headbutt, pulling hair, scratching, biting, all sorts of different forms of self-harm. And what I want to stress here is that children don't just self-harm for one reason. There's not just one reason why a child would self-harm. There's lots of different things. And one of the really disturbing, risky reasons that children self-harm is to fit in, because it's trendy. My goddaughter, when she started secondary school, I picked her up from school one night and she said to me that a couple of her friends had cut themselves on their hands. And I said, why on earth are they doing that? And she said, oh, it's like a dare. You all get dared. But she said, I'm not doing it. I'm too much of a wuss. So to not cut yourself, you were a wuss. But to do it, then you were meeting the challenge. And for some children, to meet a challenge and to be the big man is really important to them, especially for a lot of our looked after children who struggle to fit in. So we need to be aware that self-harm could be a dare, but for that child it could be about fitting in. Some of you may be aware of games such as the Blue Whale game that was going around America, and did manage to come over this country for a bit, and it was a series of challenges, and it preyed on the vulnerable and started off with little challenges that they had to meet and then post online, and then they'd get loads of, oh, well done, you're amazing, which for some children was brilliant. It would work up to things like self-harm, and then the ultimate challenge was to kill yourself. And it's not uncommon to find people preying on children to try and get them to take their own life as a challenge. So massive risks out there. Other behaviours that children can partake in, we can have alcohol, drug use, children going missing, so we don't know and can't keep them safe. And also, there's a common misconception that children might be exploiting themselves. Children don't exploit themselves, they are exploited. So there's sexual exploitation, criminal exploitation, often the two work hand in hand, and I'm sure you know about county lines. Issues like this are so big in Hull that we actually have a team called the VEMT team, which stands for the Vulnerable Exploited, Missing and Trafficked Children, and there's a team dedicated in Hull just to working with those children. Number 4 then, oppressive social attitudes and negative stereotypes. What do we mean by that? Oppressive social attitudes and negative stereotypes, some of it comes down to your isms, so racism, homophobia, sexism, all those kind of things, discriminating or prejudice against someone because of a disability. So it's all about our judgment or our power, overpowering those minority groups, and attitudes that we can have to things. So for example, I had a foster carer who, I was in their house once and the child was coming down the stairs and the foster carer needed something from the shop. And she said to the child, will you just pop to, and used a racial term to describe this shop. And she must have seen my face draw back in horror, and she said, oh, I know you're not supposed to say it, but everybody does. Not good enough. I then had to explain to the foster carer about why, for those of us who are not in a minority group, it's not for us to state what is offensive to those in a minority group, and if a minority group is saying that something's offensive, then we should respect that. So this happens a lot. Oppressive social attitudes, negative stereotypes. I encountered it myself as someone who breastfeeds their child. I had someone once tell me I was disgusting. But I was rather than do what I wanted to do to this person, what I thought was let's dig through this and see where this comes from. And when I got to the bottom of it, it was something his mum had told him, and he had no reason or backup for why he felt it was disgusting other than his mum had told him. So we need to be really careful, because our views impact on children. Children will adopt those views and have no idea where they come from or why they hold them. I've worked with children, quite young children, who have real racial hatred for no other reason other than it's been instilled in them by adults. So we really need to be aware of that. So So leading on from that, I just want to talk about that a bit more, because these attitudes and stereotypes, hidden messages, are all around us. So you may have heard the song Robin Thicke, Blurred Lines. If you haven't, usually in the training room I would sing it for you, but as this is on camera and this, who knows who may see this, and it will exist for a long time, I'm not going to sing it to you. But if you Google it, or go on YouTube or whatever, Robin Thicke, Blurred Lines, listen to the song. It'll probably then be familiar to you. It could come on the radio. If you go to a kids' disco, it'll probably be part of the disco and children will be bopping away to it. Connotation behind this song is all about having sex with women against their consent. The song's called Blurred Lines, and what it's saying is if you dress in a certain way, you're going to get it. Even if you say you don't want it, 'cause if you say you don't want it, you're blurring the lines because you're dressing like this. That's what the song's about. Yeah, it's out there. The game Grand Theft Auto, you might be familiar with. I remember my goddaughter talking to me about playing this, GTA this, GTA that. I had no idea what it was. And not only is it about stealing cars, but it's about having sex with prostitutes, killing prostitutes and stealing cars. So there's stuff out there. It's important that we challenge it and we show children that this is not okay. So coming back to our list then. Number 5, a risk avoidant culture. Have a think about what that might mean. Okay, this is exactly what I want to do to my little boy. I want to wrap him up in cotton wool and bubble wrap and then a further layer of cotton wool and then let him go. We can't do that to our children. Children learn by taking risks. Children learn by exploring. So we have to allow that to happen. If we become too risk avoidant, it can hinder children's development. So I'm thinking of children I've worked with who've been locked in rooms, who've never been let out of the house, who've been confined to a buggy or confined to a high chair. They are very, very delayed in their learning and in their development because they haven't had the chance to explore and take risks. So being risk avoidant can seriously impair our children's development. Okay, so there's our list. Now what I want you to do, it says they're in groups, but at most you will be a group of 2. I'm going to ask you to put me on pause and I want you to think about each of these in turn and think about how you might manage, overcome or reduce the risks within these 5 categories, and then we'll have a look at what you've got. Okay, so pause me there. Okay, so everyday accidents and hazards. Common answers that we get from people in the training room are things like make sure you've got safety equipment in your home. So if you've got littlies, safety gates, which are an absolute pain, although my little boy has just learned how to open them. Cupboard locks, things that are dangerous or out of reach, that kind of thing. Make sure that you haven't got loose wires hanging around. As I mentioned in the last session, make sure that we're not using socket covers. So all those different things that we can do to help with everyday accidents and hazards. Making sure children have got cycle helmets on when they go out to ride a bike, that kind of thing. 2, risky people then. What can we do to overcome the risks or reduce the risks of risky people? So like I said, we need to have conversations with children that anyone could harm them. Now I'm not saying to you that a child comes into your care and you say, hello, I'm your foster carer, I could hurt you. What we're saying is we have conversations with children about what's okay and what's not okay. So go online, look at the NSPCC PANTS campaign, the PANTS rule. In fact, I'm looking at a leaflet at the back wall, I'll just get to show you. So here's an example of the leaflet that NSPCC put out, and it's the PANTS rule. And basically the PANTS rule states that privates are private. So your private bits are yours, and if someone asks to see them, to touch them, that's not okay, whoever that is. Always remember your body belongs to you. No means no. talk about secrets that upset you, and speak up, someone can help. So that's really simple for children to understand, the pants rule. And basically, this is not okay if anybody does this. What you can do in overcoming the risk as well is not only help children to understand what's okay and what's not okay, but become that trusted person. Children will not tell just anybody if something feels unsafe. They will tell somebody they feel that they can trust. It's so important that you become that trusted person. And part of that is showing children that you can listen. So if children come to you and tell you something that initially might make you go, ooh, or you did what? What are you telling me? Hold that back and just listen. Just listen. Because if children have got something difficult to tell you, they will test you first. If I give them this, are they going to be supportive? No, they've flown off the handle. I can't trust them with anything. You'll only get the big stuff if they can trust you with the small stuff. So please listen to children. That is vital. Number 3 then, dangers arising from children's own behaviour. What can you do to reduce the risk of this? Again, become that child's safe person. So when they need to talk, when things are getting difficult, they can talk to you. Also, know where your children are. Spend time with your children. Support them. If they need additional help, get them additional help and support. Talk to your support network. Talk to the people around these children. There's a common misconception when it comes to self-harm that you should hide all knives and scissors. If children are going to self-harm, they'll self-harm. They don't need a knife or some scissors. Children can take a poster off their bedroom wall and cut themselves with that. Children can pull their hair, children can scratch, children can bite themselves. So rather than trying to stop it, the key is to get into the root of it. What's going on here? Why is this children doing this, which therefore puts them in a lot of danger? Talk to them, listen to them. It's exactly the same. Number 4, oppressive social attitudes and negative stereotypes then. This is going to be all about your attitude and your role modelling. Children will see you, children will watch you, children will soak up what you do, what you say, and if you're giving them a message, i.e. you can't say things like this, you can't do things like that, but you're doing the opposite, children will pick up on that. Equally, you need to be able to challenge other people who come into your home. Or who are around your children. So you might have a mate that comes to your house and cracks a really, really homophobic joke. It's important that the child sees you challenging that. Because you're the role model, you're saying, this isn't okay, but look, I'm showing you it's not okay. And we need to promote equality and diversity. We need to make sure that children are educated and aware of all different groups and all different walks of life and all different needs that people might have. And a risk avoidant culture, I suppose the key to overcoming that risk is let children take risks. Proportionate risks, which is what we're going to come on to talk about. Don't wrap them up in bubble wrap, don't wrap them up in cotton wool, even though you're sat quivering in the corner going, oh, I'm so worried about them. We need to let them take risks. Okay, what I'm going to ask you all to do now is to pause me, and I want you to go on YouTube and type in Kaylee's love story, and I want you to watch Kaylee's love story. What I will say to you is it can be very difficult to watch, so just prepare yourself for the fact that this is a really difficult video to watch. But what we're moving on to now is looking at online risks and the world of modern technology and the risk that that can create for children. So pause me now and go and watch Kaylee's love story. Okay, so hopefully you were able to find that clip. First thing I always like to say after watching that clip is how brave I think Kaylee's parents are for making that clip in order to help other people. Online risks out there are huge, they're very real, and as this clip shows, it's not just about children in care. Anybody is vulnerable to grooming, and there's certain things that make people vulnerable, but adolescents are vulnerable as a group, as a whole, because one of the key parts, one of the key milestones of adolescence development is that pack mentality, that need to fit in, that seeking of identity, that kind of cementing who I am, where I fit in the world, where I'm going. And a lot of adolescents experience a period of time where they just feel lost and they don't really know who they are, they're just part of this group, and therefore they're easily led, easily susceptible, and very, very vulnerable. So for people out there who want to prey on the vulnerable and groom children, then they're going to be looking for the ones that are the most susceptible. We do run a course here, which you will do in your first year, called eSafety, which looks at online safety in much more detail. But what I'd say to you is, for those of you who are sat there thinking, well, I don't know anything about the internet, Snapchat and Facebook and all this, you need to. I have Facebook and text and WhatsApp, that's about it. I don't know anything about video games, online gaming, nothing. My son's 2. I'm going to have to, whether I like it or not, educate myself as he gets older, because you cannot avoid the digital world. Sexting is very, very real and a huge risk to our young people at the moment. I used to show a clip in this course, which isn't available anymore, about a documentary on sexting. And this documentary purposely went into private schools, dance schools, things like that, to dispel the myth that the children who are at risk are poor children with uneducated families. All children are at risk. And these children in this clip talked about, some of them as young as 13, 14, talked about how normal it is to get asked for a picture of your bits once or twice a week, at least. And how these children talk about porn, and how they feel pressured to look like and perform like people in porn videos. And this is scary, it scares me to death. When I was at school, people would talk about, have you had a snog yet? Now it's, have you shown your bits yet? Okay, some lads might have a mucky magazine and everyone would have a quick peep at somebody's boobs in this magazine. Now children can access porn very easily, very readily. All these porn sites have categories such as violent porn, rape porn, things like aggressive anal sex is seen as normal. And what children in these documentaries are saying is they feel pressure to be able to perform like that. So we need to be giving children the message that this isn't normal. And relationship education is vital for children. So again, for you guys, being a good role model comes into this more than ever. They need to see you modelling positive relationships, how to interact with people, because the message that children are getting out there in the world and on the in the digital world is not normal. So one of the things Kaylee's parents said after this is they wished that they'd asked her, who is it that keeps texting you? When her phone was going off, ping, 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 constantly, they didn't ask her who it was. And some of you might be thinking, well, she probably wouldn't have said. No, but a reaction can tell a lot. Okay, and the way that she reacted to their questions might have hinted that there was something going on that maybe was in secret, or that we might want to know more about.